Everybody, welcome back to Kayfabe Critique. I'm David.
I'm Jason. We are back.
We're back and we're picking up where we were ending last season. So towards the end of season 1, we were walking through what was happening at the end of 1998. We started with Survivor Series and just been gradually moving forward. And so now here we are covering Royal Rumble 1999.
Wow. Just hearing 1999 makes me feel old.
So we know, let's talk about how we kind of got into this spot with the Royal Rumble. So Survivor Series 98, we have the Deadly Games tournament. Prior to that, Austin faces Undertaker and Kane at the same time in a triple threat match. Double pin, don't have a winner. McMahon declares both Undertaker and Kane the number one contenders, puts Austin as a referee, says he has to claim a winner. Austin stuns both of them, gets fired but brought back by Shane McMahon. This leads to the tournament. At the tournament, we get the big double cross, and The Rock faces Mankind towards the end. They put the sharpshooter on. Screw job, Rock wins. Mankind saying, "I never gave up."
Exactly, and don't forget Vince peeing his pants somewhere in there too.
Oh yes, with Austin with the gun.
Yeah,
I 316.
I mean, shout out to Vince Russo, because that Survivor Series 1998 story is just, it's storytelling at its finest. I mean, just to have the way that story just developed over month, and you didn't. I mean, if you were paying attention, you might have caught certain things, but then you get the dramatic swerve at the end, which anymore you just don't get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were so many storylines layered through there, and they continued forward.
Exactly.
And so when you get to Rock Bottom 98, which you can see both Survivor Series 98 and Rock Bottom 98 in our archives on our YouTube channel, but when you get to Rock Bottom 98, here's some of the things that were all going on at that time. You had the tag team title match was the New Age Outlaws against part of the corporation. So Ken Shamrock and the Big Boss Man with Commissioner Shawn Michaels.
Right.
You had Mankind also defeats The Rock with Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon. But what was interesting about this, and what helped kind of really push this forward at Rock Bottom, was the Mr. Cycle was actually used for the mandible claw by Mankind on The Rock, but McMahon says because The Rock technically didn't submit, The Rock's still the champion.
I mean, it's a corporate screwing, because technically, anytime in any other match the guy gets knocked out, he loses.
Mm-hmm.
But because Vince makes the rules and Vince is the boss, he can override basically anything, and he pulled that card.
And so we're continuing to build what started at Survivor Series 98 of Mankind getting screwed out of getting the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the main event at Rock Bottom, you had the Buried Alive match with Stone Cold, who was the hottest superstar at the time, against The Undertaker, with the qualification here of if Austin won, he could get back into the Royal Rumble. And
they really did a good job with this feud, with some of the stuff that they did as far as Austin. Austin was teaming up with Kane during this time to pull some stuff over on Paul Bearer and Taker, and Taker's character was evolving, and we got to see Austin drive something else. I mean, what didn't the dude drive in 1998?
Right, yeah, between 98 and 99. I
mean, the only thing missing may be an F-15 and a stealth bomber that he didn't drive in those 2 years. So they just did a good job of just constantly moving the story forward, and you knew what the payoff was going to be, because the night after Survivor Series, the way the crowd erupted for Austin Rock at Rupp Arena, that might have been kind of like a test marketing thing, but once you put that together, it's like, magic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, obviously Austin wins the Buried Alive match at Rock Bottom. And so now we're on our way to Royal Rumble 99. And Mr. McMahon has the statement that Austin has no chance in hell of winning. And we know that'll go on to be the theme of Royal Rumble 1999.
And I was sitting there thinking about that the other day. Between Triple H having Motorhead as his theme song, that might be the second longest running theme song, right? Well, Shawn Michaels had his for a while, I forgot about that, but No Chance in Hell has just lasted. It just has that staying power. I mean, it's right up there with Real American and the NWO theme and Sexy Boy. I mean, there's just certain themes that just last.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And so, after Rock Bottom, some of the other storylines going on, like we mentioned, the New Age Outlaws. So you had, Shawn Michaels starts to put the New Age Outlaws in different matches. He puts them back in a tag team title rematch with Boss Man and Shamrock, and which causes them to lose. Mm-hmm. And so then we start to see the New Age Outlaws start to wrestle single matches at this time. So it's kind of, breaking up one of the hottest tag teams that were going at that time, one of the most over tag teams, to really kind of branch out to see if they can be hot individual stars.
And in my opinion, they're just some combinations are just better together. I mean, Pippen never won a title without Jordan. Jordan never won a title without Pippen.
And it's similar kind of like to the Outsiders. Hall's entertaining, Nash is entertaining. They're both good, but when they were together, it was magic.
Absolutely.
And so, some of the other stuff we got going on. So, Mankind on the episode right before Christmas faces Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon's left in charge, wants to wrestle Mankind. Mankind obviously starts getting the best of Shane McMahon, really putting it to him. Commissioner Michaels holds everyone back on the ramp. He doesn't let the corporation come down. Mm-hmm. Mr. McMahon gets furious with this and fires Commissioner Michaels. Mm-hmm. Commissioner Michaels then returns to point out that his contract is ironclad as a commissioner, like we covered in our Survivor Series 98 episode. And what he does in this motion is, we already knew that Stone Cold Steve Austin was going to be the number one person into the Royal Rumble. Mm-hmm. And Mr. McMahon was saying he was number 30. He pulled out his number, he was number 30, but he made a comment of, I only wish I could be number 2. Mm-hmm. And so Commissioner Michaels grants his wish and makes Mr. McMahon number 2 to give Austin a whole night after Mr. McMahon.
That's amazing. I mean, just how Shawn Michaels as commissioner, I mean, I know he was going through some stuff at that time, but he was still entertaining. And just the idea of Stone Cold and Mr. McMahon being 1 and 2 in the Rumble, I remember back then that just really had me stoked.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when that announcement happened, just how excited I was to get to the Rumble, because they had done such a great job building the anticipation of Austin McMahon.
Right. I mean, you think about April 13th, 1998, which is the day the 83-week streak ended, and they teased it, but you thought you were going to get it then, but
it was really just a build up for Austin Dude Love.
Right.
And now you're actually going to get it.
Right. A couple minutes of it, but you're getting it.
Yeah. And so, we know in this, during that segment as well, Shawn Michaels says he's got the cavalry with him. He brings DX out with him. He had his issues with DX as the commissioner, so when the corporation is waiting for Shawn Michaels outside, DX kind of sets him up later in that episode. And we get really a pretty violent scene there when you come back and you find Shawn Michaels with his face through his rental car windshield and blood all over. So, I mean, this was pretty violent, especially considered today's standards.
Yeah, and knowing the storyline now, I mean, it was done because he was going to have that back surgery. And again, just like you said, it was just much more violent than anything that we've seen. I mean, we've seen Shawn Michaels he's a guy that's willing to do that kind of stuff. I mean, and it's believable when he takes that kind of punishment. Like thinking about 2002 setting up the match between him and Triple H. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. He's a character that I mean, you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin Dunn has said it before, where when you feel the pain that Shawn Michaels feels in the ring, because you're able to relate to him so well.
Yeah, because he's not the biggest guy. He's not he's was a phenomenal athlete, probably still a great athlete, but when he was in pain in the ring, you could hear it in his voice, you could see it in his face. And the way he went around the ring, you could see it. He just looked like, he kind of invokes memories of Rocky Balboa telling Apollo to come on, and Apollo just like.
And so, we know he'll end up being a big part of where this is going towards WrestleMania later on. But now, Shawn Michaels is out of the picture, the man who just made Mr. McMahon number 2 in the Rumble. And so they set up a Rumble between the Corporation and D-Generation X, with the winner of this Rumble getting the number 30 spot in. Mr. McMahon comes out late and jumps into the Rumble, with people thinking he was not involved, to try to win it, to try to get back to that number 30 spot. But out comes China unexpectedly and tosses Mr. McMahon over. And now, for the first time in history, we're going to see a woman in the Royal Rumble.
Yes, and think about how far we've come. We just covered 2019's Royal Rumble, which had a separate women's Royal Rumble. And we have China as the first woman in a Royal Rumble in 1999. Put that woman in the Hall of Fame, please.
Yeah, and at this time, she was the only person that would have been believable to be in it. The only woman on the roster that would have been believable to be in it. She was definitely a trendsetter, so yeah, absolutely, she deserves the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, and I didn't mention this in the Rumble episode, but the whole stuff with Nia Jackson there with the guys, I was kind of iffy on it, but it was believable because Nia can hold her own, and it's like before Nia, there was China.
Yeah, absolutely, and China is what led to your Beth Phoenixes of the world, etc. So, yeah, absolutely, she was the trailblazer.
Exactly.
She should get definitely her rightful place.
The man don't need a trailblazer though. She's the man.
But also, the same episode of Raw, this January 4th, we see Mrs. Foley's baby boy. We see Mankind capture his first WWE title, beating The Rock, with the help of D-Generation X and Stone Cold Steve Austin to kind of offset the interference of the Corporation.
Man, every time I watch that match and I hear that glass break, I've heard that glass break in Reliance Stadium in Houston. I've heard that glass break on TV many times before with larger crowds, but I have never heard the reaction like that to that glass breaking when Stone Cold came out.
Yeah, I remember, sitting in a pay-per-view in 1999 with the glass breaking, the crowd erupting. I remember a house show in '98 going to see the glass breaking, the crowd erupting. But yeah, that pop that he got that night when he came out was probably the loudest Austin pop ever.
Yeah, it's probably up there with the loudest pops period ever.
Yeah, absolutely. But just the pops for Austin overall.
Yeah.
I think through that whole time frame of 98 through 99 probably rank among the tops of all time.
Yeah, and it's just, you think about that night in the history of professional wrestling, we might just have to do an episode if we haven't already about just that particular night. That night was pretty much a kind of a microcosm of things to come.
Yeah, between both channels.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, after Mankind wins the title, initially he's refusing to give The Rock a rematch. And until finally they agree upon an I Quit match. And Mankind, even backstage in any promos, he will not say the words I quit.
Yeah.
Until Sunday Night Heat, right before the Royal Rumble, in an interview, he said, "You'll never get me to say," and he screamed, I quit, I quit.
Mm-hmm.
And Shane McMahon says, thank you for those kind words.
Mm-hmm.
So, now we're off Sunday Night Heat. We are into Royal Rumble 1999. Let's kind of roll down some of the things that happened. So, like we mentioned, New Age Outlaws are in individual matches at this point, and the Big Boss Man beats the Road Dogg. And Ken Shamrock then follows it up, beating Billy Gunn.
Weird.
Yeah, so you had both the Boss Man and Shamrock holding, Boss Man holding the Hardcore title, Shamrock holding the Intercontinental title, and their tag team champions, and they both got individual wins over the New Age Outlaws.
I mean, it seems kind of like they're trying to make the corporation kind of like some of the folks on the other channel that had a lot of gold at this time too.
Yeah, it was almost like the corporation was trying to strengthen up, like in NWO, like you were kind of mentioning there, that just strengthen the corporation almost to make it look like the odds were completely against Austin going into WrestleMania.
And it makes sense. It makes absolute sense because it made sense from a storyline standpoint, where on the other channel, you really didn't know where they were going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, it was like we're building up the corporation for the big payoffs at WrestleMania. So from here, Sable was able to retain her women's championship in a strap match against Luna.
Forgot about this match, and sure I'm not the only one. Rest in peace, Luna.
And then now we're on to the final two matches, really. Or sorry, I did skip one. X-Pac did beat Gangrel in the European Championship match. X-Pac! So, but now we're on to the two matches, the two main matches, the main stories we were talking about. And so in looking at that, you know, we start off with the I Quit match with The Rock and Mankind. And I know they covered this on Something to Wrestle With, but if you have not seen this match, you know, you have to understand going in to watch it that this is more violent than probably anything you've ever seen before, unless you've watched, you know, like unless you've watched some like the Japanese death matches or some of the early, you know, kind of ECW stuff when they really went extreme. But for those who are just normal WWE viewers, yeah, this is the most violent match probably in the history of WWE.
Or at least one of them. Hide your kids watching this one. I mean, yeah, this was wow.
Yeah, and so Mankind, Mick Foley has his hands handcuffed behind his back, and The Rock hits him with 13 chair shots to
wide open.
Yeah, to someone who couldn't defend himself.
I mean, I get the I mean, and it's been said since that they both understand that they went too far with it. I mean,
right, and it's been covered. You know, a lot of people blamed Vince Russo for this, but it's been covered. He did not script this to happen. Mm-hmm. This was something they decided on their own to do in the match. Right,
and I don't think that there was any malice on The Rock's part or anything like that, and I think Mankind's whole focus was just putting on a good show, which is what his focus always was, and he was willing to give his body. But you definitely wouldn't see anything like this today, knowing what we know about concussions and things like that.
Right, and on Something to Wrestle With, you know, Conrad had a very good point of, yes, Mankind could have been bouncing back up, but he may not have been aware he was bouncing back up. I mean, think of Tyson Trevor Burbick.
Yeah.
You know, Trevor Burbick is getting up even though he has no idea where he is. And he just kept going down. You know, this is very similar that this could have been happening, and in The Rock's defense, we didn't know the stuff we know about head injuries back then that we do now, so he's thinking, you know, if that was the case of why Mankind's jumping up, he's not aware.
Yeah, and again, knowing what we know about The Rock, he's not that type of guy, and he just wouldn't have done that. No, if he had known what we know now. So this is a violent match, but the purpose of it, I believe, was to build The Rock as this character who had a little bit of badass in him, because
you had to make him tougher to go against the world's toughest son of a bitch in Steve Austin.
Exactly, and it's just amazing the parallels. It's just that when you have a champion and you want to prove that he's tough, who do you put him in the ring against?
Yeah, absolutely, and we've covered that in other episodes that Mankind, Mick Foley, has been used to show that tough side of a champion, that more aggressive side, on multiple occasions. The Rock, Austin, Triple H, Shawn Michaels.
Exactly. I mean, every last one of them had to pass the Foley test. I mean, it legitimized you. And this match also showed us some of the... This was when we first started to see some of the more comedic side of The Rock while he's entertaining, because he's using the bell, and I'll never forget this. He just says, "Bells will be ringing," and then he dings it, and I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, he started to do stuff like that a lot during this time, like, kind of taking over the camera and talking.
Yeah.
Putting on the announcers' headsets and talking. Singing like SmackDown Hotel.
Right.
Changing Heartbreak Hotel. So yeah, I mean, ton of stuff like that, like the Rock character. That was just, it was so funny. It was so over. I remember watching those segments live, and just all the guys I watched wrestling with at the time just going crazy over stuff like that.
Yeah, and you really started to see that this guy had this charisma that, I mean, he didn't get to show when he first debuted back in 1996, and he was just being himself, and, I mean, being like, some of the guys who came out of the U, I mean, talking trash, like they say, hit stuff, stick stuff, bust stuff. I can't say the words. I don't want to say the words on there, but he just started to be himself, and look where it got him.
Yeah, so kind of back to this match. I mean, the violence in this, the 13 unanswered chair shots to a defensive Mankind, buzzed his head open in multiple spots. His hair is just drenched in blood, and I don't know if he was actually knocked unconscious or if it's, he's just unconscious for the story, but The Rock then proceeds to hold the microphone to his mouth, and you hear the "I quit, I quit, I quit," which was his words from Sunday Night Heat played over the PA in the arena. I remember watching that live, and I remember when he said that on Sunday Night Heat, I remember telling the people I was watching with, they're going to screw him again tonight, and they're going to use that recording.
Gosh, she was booking even back then, but I didn't even think about that when that happened, but it was, it really fit because it didn't make Mankind look bad, and it also made The Rock, it built him even more as a heel, because, you do heel things to win.
And it gave him more heat as the heel, and it gave this potential rivalry more heat, because we know we still had one more pay-per-view to go after this, which we will cover in an upcoming episode. And
we also had Halftime Heat, which
absolutely.
will also be returning this Sunday, which I'm actually pretty excited for. I only wish they would do another. I wish they could do another WWE Attitude type commercial too.
So from here, we move on in the pay-per-view. Into the Rumble, we move on to the actual Rumble match itself. And,
looks jacked.
A lot of people, kind of downplay this Rumble, and they talk about the guys who are actually in the Rumble. But we had to remember that two different points to make about that. One, a lot of these characters were what people enjoyed at that time. Mm-hmm. A lot of these characters were over. A lot of these characters got the crowd reaction because they were engaging, and they were characters that were, because everyone was involved in the storyline, so they were characters people cared about.
Right.
Not all of them aged well, I will give it that, but you're writing for the time. You're not writing for 20 years down the line.
Right.
And second thing to remember is this was all about Austin McMahon.
Those two right there.
And so we know that it starts with those two. Austin's kind of getting his shots in on McMahon. McMahon ends up getting out of the ring and leading Austin into the women's restroom, which ends up being a setup. The corporation's waiting for him, and they take Austin out. And so it kind of leaves both of them out of the show for a little while.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, because you don't want them to be, you don't want to give the crowd like a full Royal Rumble worth of them, knowing where you're thinking about where you're going next month with St. Valentine's Day Massacre. You want to give them just enough to say, I want to see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were doing two different things. You were building St. Valentine's Day Massacre, but you were also laying the foundation for WrestleMania.
Exactly.
So yeah, this was definitely. I know a lot of people complain about this and say, well, if you subtract the time that they weren't in the ring, but it was done in a way to keep you wanting more. Absolutely. It delivered on what it promised, but left you wanting more.
Absolutely, and again, it's more of a storytelling that we don't get enough of, where you're building, where everything has a purpose. There's not like an album, like certain albums just have filler songs and stuff like that. Everything that was happening was leading you towards your payoff at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and so this comes down to Austin McMahon, which we were expecting, but The Rock comes out.
Of course. And
so, previously, a lot of people tried to take Austin out in this match because Mr. McMahon had promised $100,000 out of Shane McMahon's trust fund for whoever can eliminate Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Chump change for Shane.
So The Rock comes out, which distracts Stone Cold, and Mr. McMahon is able to tumble him over the top rope, and now Mr. McMahon is going to WrestleMania. He is your winner of the 1999 Royal Rumble.
Again, brilliant storytelling. I mean, let's face it, we all knew Vince McMahon wasn't going to main event WrestleMania against The Rock.
Definitely. I think everyone knew that, but did you, thinking back at the time when you were watching it, did you expect Mr. McMahon to win the Royal Rumble? Or did you think it was going to be Austin?
I thought Austin was going to win.
Yeah, I did too. I 100% thought Austin was going to win.
I really did, and the fact that The Rock came out and distracted him, and Vince McMahon throws him over the top, I mean, knowing what I know now, it makes absolute sense, because I didn't know there was going to be a St. Valentine's Day Massacre pay-per-view.
Yeah, and so at that time, I was confident. I was said it, going into Survivor Series 98, I was telling people that I had a feeling that he wasn't going to get the belt back until WrestleMania. But I was convinced this was his ticket to WrestleMania, was by winning the Royal Rumble, which didn't happen. So, this definitely, you're ending Royal Rumble 1999 kind of like, wow, what just happened?
Yeah, and again, shout out to the storytelling, because it kept you coming back. It's like, our hero has been foiled again. How is he going to get his title back?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you leave us like that at the end of a pay-per-view, we have to tune in on Raw to see that.
Right, and we just, we got a little bit of that now, because of the fact that we knew, everybody in America, everybody watching WWE knew that Becky was going to be on Raw Monday night. So it's just, how are we going to get there? And this story has been, they're starting to do a little bit of that.
Yeah, we're starting to see, recently since the McMahon family returned, we're starting to see more around the story and less around the in-ring performance. They're still giving us the in-ring performance,
right,
but they're starting to give us a story to go with it, which definitely make it better. It still hasn't gotten to this level yet,
right?
Which I'm hoping eventually it will, because, yeah, at this level, I was dying for Raw the next night.
Man, and this was like one of the first times in a long time I can remember feeling like that about wanting to get home Monday night. And I got home, something was wrong with my DirecTV, but I turned on the TV just in time to see Becky and Ronda going face to face. And I was just like, yes.
Yeah, so, Royal Rumble 99 ends, I'm, dying for Raw the next night. And, we will pick up a St. Valentine's Day Massacre episode coming up, and we will tell you what happened on that following Raw and building up towards the St. Valentine's Day Massacre pay-per-view, and then of course what happened there. But just to kind of close out on this, I know a lot of people criticize this, saying it doesn't age well, but in terms of storytelling and know where it's going, I still find this as one of the most exciting Royal Rumbles.
I agree. I think it's kind of like your Rocky V, which gets a lot of criticism. if you think about it though, Rocky 5 was necessary to get us to Rocky Balboa and the Creed movies.
Yeah, in this situation, I couldn't give it to Rocky 5 comparison because, yeah, where Rocky 5 is necessary, just it's not a good movie.
The director's cut though, if you can find that, that is much better.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, in this situation, I don't necessarily, I don't see this as a bad Royal Rumble. I thought it was a good Rumble. I thought it fit with what was going on at the time. It was what made us excited at the time. It was what we liked watching at the time. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, the hottest storyline in all of wrestling at that time, McMahon Austin, mm-hmm. and we got that. We wanted to see McMahon, or we wanted to see Austin Rock. We got a teaser towards that. Mm-hmm. We were loving what was going on with Mankind and The Rock. We definitely got our fill of that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so I mean, this actually delivered on everything everybody wanted, but it did it in a way where it didn't close. It left you open to continue to go towards WrestleMania.
Right. It left you wanting more. It's like a good book. You can't wait to turn to the next page or the next page or the next chapter. You can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hope you enjoyed that coverage of Royal Rumble 1999. You know, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a follow on our social medias. And we will be back. Our upcoming episodes, some of the things we're going to cover. We're going to look at, is there a smear campaign? Is there a conspiracy against Vince Russo?
And if so, why?
We'll look at Eric Bischoff's influence on wrestling.
He definitely had one.
Yeah, he's kind of almost the unsung hero of the 90s.
Without a doubt.
And then at the same time, you know, we will also be coming back with our St. Valentine's Day Massacre 1999 coverage for you as we continue to build towards WrestleMania 15 coverage.
Which is one of the best WrestleManias ever.
So, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you later.